I first saw Laila Robins in Mrs. Klein with Uta Hagen, a three-hander. Can you imagine a young actress having to work opposite Miss Uta Hagen? And of course, we've seen Lila on stage in The Real Thing, and my God, Homeland, and so many things. The great thing about this panel for me, besides the fact that they're here, the great thing about it is the fact that they all work in all the mediums. They have television, theater, film. Many, many actors, as we know, do not do theater. They can't do theater. They're not good enough to do theater. They can't project. You know, I've seen some great stars on stage not projecting. Our four people here can project. Anyhow, Lila,
And
please.
here's proof. This is the chapter called The Radio Show. Hopefully the eyes will hold up. One day, not long after that, I received a call from John Doyle, who was in charge of the New York City Theater controlled by Walter Reed. I was sure he was calling to congratulate me on Show of Shows, and I welcomed the call. I liked John. Everyone did. A schmoozer with a Texas drawl. He was the go-to guy for tennis tournament tickets, Broadway shows, baseball games, and more. And I waited to hear his compliments. He surprised me with what he said instead. "Julian, you should have your own radio talk show," he told me. "Thanks," I laughed. "Okay with me. What's your plan?" "My friend is the sales manager for WMCA Talk Radio," he explained. "They want to do a show on movies. You have to speak to the public on the phone and do interviews, but I know you can do it." I was then 32 years old, and I had never been on the radio, but I was interested. We went over to WMCA and met with the general manager and John's friend, the sales manager. When I told him I was interested, the general manager said, "Good, you'll go on today as a guest on the Leon Lewis show at 3 p.m. It was now 2:30 p.m. Not much time to prepare. Fortunately, Leon was gracious and charming. I told stories, I talked about current films, I talked about classics. I laughed with Leon, and then we talked on the phone with the public. I was on fire, and I stayed a full hour. At the end of my guest shot, the two men who ran the station were waiting for me in the hallway. "Very good," they both said. "We want you to do just one more show." "Fella, this is it," I said. "That's the best I can do. If what you've heard isn't good enough, I can't do any better." They said they'd get back to me. "Don't worry," John whispered when they'd gone. "It's in the bag." "Why?" I asked. "They're dying on Sunday night, and I told them we get movie stars to come on with you." Well, I did know a few movie names, and so did John, and he was right. They did say okay. They had one stipulation. They insisted I change my last name. That didn't work for me. I knew that Schlossberg was sometimes hard for people to pronounce, but this was New York City. A lot of Jewish folks lived there. I refused, and they eventually gave in. On a Tuesday, John told me we were on for Sunday. "Wait a minute," I stammered. It's Tuesday. We need a guest. We need some sort of outline." "Don't worry, Julian," John said. "It's in the bag." We were scheduled from 8 to 9 p.m., primetime Sunday. My first guest was film producer Stephen J. Friedman, whose big hit was The Last Picture Show. We had known each other a while, and I knew he could talk. Plus, he had a new Sidney Lumet film opening called Loving Molly, starring Anthony Perkins, Blythe Danner, Beau Bridges, and newcomer named Susan Sarandon. We had a lot to talk about. I thought it would be a piece of cake. But being a host on the radio is not the same as being a guest. The guest doesn't have to worry about the pace of the show, or the commercials, or the time left. As the guest, you almost always know more about the subject than the host, but the host has a lot of homework to do. At some point, I knew I had to open the phones to the public. I wondered whether anyone would actually call in. I told my parents and girlfriend to phone in with questions if no one dialed the station, so it wouldn't be too embarrassing. When all 7 of our lines lit up at once, I was relieved. I went to the first line. "You're on WMCA," I said. "Julian?" a male voice asked. "Yes." The caller let out a huge Bronx cheer. This is done by sticking out your tongue and making a noise that sounds a lot like flatulence. "Thank you for calling," I immediately answered. Though there was a 7-second delay and I knew no listener had heard the call, I started to sweat. My hand was shaking as I pushed line number 2. Hello, you're on WMCA. Mr. Schlossberg, another voice whispered. Yes. Fuck you.
Whoa.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I was now a basket case. Fortunately, the rest of the callers were all polite. Though I would be on WMCA for 7 years and later WOR for 2 more, I never, ever had that kind of rudeness again. But what a baptism by fire. When the hour was mercifully almost over, my producer told me, "You have 1 minute left." I panicked. "Good night," I said immediately, "and I'll be back next week." Pause. To my horror, I realized that I had 55 seconds were still left on the show. "You're listening to WMCA," I ad-libbed. "We are 570 on your dial." Pause. "My name is Julian Schlossberg. This was probably the only time I've ever been glad my name was so long. And the name of our show is Movie Talk." Pause. "Stephen J. Friedman has been our guest." Pause. "His new film, Loving Molly, opens this week." Finally, it was 9 p.m., and I was drenched in perspiration. That was a nerve-wracking experience, but it did get better. Within 6 months, I was given another hour, then another, then another. Within a year, we were on from 8 o'clock to midnight, 4 hours. Then I was offered 1 more hour. I had to refuse. 8 to midnight was enough. The show turned out to be a good example of the power of word of mouth. I did what apparently few hosts did. I actually watched the movies, read the books, and went to the plays. And as a result, the guests told each other and their PR people, "This guy does his homework." Though I never quit my day job at Walter Reed, I loved doing that radio show. And I met a lot of people on it, some of whom became lifelong friends.
When you think of the incomparable actresses on Broadway, off-Broadway, and TV and film, you think of Laila Robins. Lila, where can we see you right now?
Well, I continue to work on Amazon's The Boys. This is the 3rd season. We shoot that up in Toronto, so that's been a lot of fun. And I did finish the finale season of the original Walking Dead, which I thought I never would do, but there I am. I played the big bad lady in the last 14 episodes of the entire show, which had gone on for 11 years. It's one of the longest running shows ever.
Now, can we see you back on stage?
I would love to get back on stage. I don't think I've done a play since pre-pandemic, so it's time, definitely. Hopefully I still have those muscles. They're different muscles.
They are different muscles.
I hope I have them, or I will develop them quickly. I'd love to do a play again. There's nothing like the live audience. So.
And how did you meet Julia?
Julian reached out to me to do a reading of a play that we're in development with. It's a play I'm working on with F. Murray Abraham.
Oh, so it's the Norman Mailer.
Ah, so you know all about it.
I've heard about it now.
Okay.
Yes.
yes. I play the interviewer.
Okay.
Of the son, who is also is a 3-hander play, and we're hoping to get into production at some point soon.
I'm looking forward to this because I knew the Mailer family.
Oh, you did?
Oh, in so many ways. And what haven't I asked you that you would like our audiences to know?
I would just like to encourage everyone to go back to the theater. I've been going as of late, and I feel very safe. I wear my mask. I feel very comfortable being there. And just wash your hands, wear your mask, and come to the theater, because there's so many great plays to see right now, and the theater needs you. So come out.
Thank you so much.